This is going to be something different, and I know it might frighten and shock a few of you, but I think it's very necessary, so please bear with me as I try to do this. And I would like to appeal to white people. This is my olive branch to white people. You may have heard a lot of conservative people, your Sargon of Accads, for example, saying that white lives matter. And people on the left might shit all over him for saying something like that. But I want to tell you that it is actually entirely true, that white lives do matter. And anyone telling you different is lying to you. White lives do matter. And all lives do matter, in fact. Because here's the neat thing, and this is something that probably not a lot of people on the other side of the aisle have been saying to you, but this is what I want to get across. And that is that race is a social construct, as in it's made up, as in we as a society have invented the idea of race. So there isn't actually any such thing as white people or black people. It turns out we're all just human beings, which is neat. Which is neat for a number of reasons. One, the idea that certain races are inherently better than other races, that certain races are more intelligent than other races, that certain races have higher IQs than other races, that certain races are just inherently going to be better at performing certain tasks, is claptrap. It's monkey babble. It's absolute nonsense. It's just gibberish. It's racist. It's racist in origins. So when someone tells you that it's okay to be white, it is. It's totally fine. It's totally fine to be whatever you were born. Whether you were born white, gay, pansexual, trans, whatever it is, every single one of those is totally fine and valid. And all we would ask is that you kind of take the time to realize that just because it's a social construct that we made it up, and if you want a difference, by the way, what is and what isn't a social construct, a turtle isn't a social construct. They exist outside of society. So turtles, not a social construct. Race realism, social constructs. IQ, measuring people's intelligence based on skull measuring and stuff like that. All social constructs. Turtles, real. Everything else, social constructs. And what we would ask is that you be aware that because it is a social construct, that doesn't mean that you don't get treated differently the day you walk outside of the house. See, if you are white like myself and you walk outside of your house, you're probably going to be treated differently by society as a whole than if you had black skin. That's just unfortunately some of the realities of the world we live in, and it's unfortunate, but it's just the thing. You might have also heard some people talk about white supremacy and why that's a big problem. It has a lot to do with, let's just say, capitalism. And I don't want to go on this whole lefty rant here, but oftentimes people ask, why is white supremacy inextricably linked with capitalism? That is because the idea of what white is or black is came about from white people trying to justify slavery. See, slavery, especially chattel slavery, is probably one of the most horrific and barbaric things human beings have ever done. And the whole thing was done on such a systemic and global scale that it helped, let's just say, increase the wealth, the vast wealth of the Judeo-Christian white people to such a degree that they now run the show. The majority of the world's CEOs are white. The majority of the politicians in the most powerful country on earth, the United States, are white. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that, of course, their wealth and accrued power came at the backs of slavery. It grew and fostered from there. So the idea of inventing what is a white and black person had to come forward to justify the fact that white people were subjugating black people, which is bad. That's a bad thing. Again, that's bad. Don't do that. Don't do that. So now that we have the system in which wealth and power are basically held onto by capital, it keeps those class structures enabled. So it reinforces white supremacy. And that's, again, that's a bad thing. So don't go down those roads. Don't do those things. So to summarize, all I can say is that it's okay to be white. It's totally fine to be white. And it's also totally fine to be black. The difference is you should just recognize how both are treated by society. They're treated differently, and what you can do to help fix and ameliorate the problem. If you want to be on the right side of history, the good side of history, because rest assured, if there's one thing that history has shown, it seems to be that people who are ultimately oppressed, especially on very large levels, tend to want to fight back, tend to want to push back against their oppressors, and they often win. And societies come, societies go, societies crumble, but you should be helping the right cause, the cause of, I don't know, humanity. That would be a good way to summarize all this. You may have heard people like Charlie Kirk tell you that it's totally fine to not be ashamed of slavery because he's never owned a slave. I mean, let's be real. He owns a couple, but anyways, they're tucked away deep somewhere. He's never owned a slave. He was never directly involved in slavery. So why should he feel guilt for slavery? Why should anyone feel white guilt, as some pronounce it? And to a certain extent, he's true. You shouldn't feel personally responsible for slavery, unless of course you do currently own a slave. But yeah, if you weren't involved in slavery, you don't have to feel guilty for slavery. That form of white guilt is performative and it's useless. And it's kind of manifesting itself right now in people who are like bowing down to black people during Black Lives Matter and professing their deep ashamedness of their skin color and stuff like that. That's funny. It's good for the memes, but it doesn't really solve any of the problems that we've been talking about this whole time. So while you do not need to feel in any way guilty for the horrors and atrocities of slavery, you should still be aware that the ramifications and the long-term lasting effects of things like slavery, Jim Crow laws, and the modern-day slavery that we have in the current prison industrial complex, which of course is indiscriminately locking up more black people than it is white people by a huge margin, and then making them do slave labor. You should feel guilty if you enable any of those systems, and you should feel guilty if you don't want to actively work towards stopping them. That's what you should feel white guilt for. So that's what you should save that for. Don't feel guilt for things that happened before you were born because you didn't do them. You weren't there. Just feel guilty for if you are upholding the same systems in place that are actively disenfranchising people. Because yeah, that's one white guilt I could get behind. But otherwise, you're cute. Don't worry about that. And Charlie Kirk has an enormous head that grows in size every time he's wrong. So obviously that'll continue to inflate until he can fly above us all and lord his powers like he truly wants to.
Before we bombard you with all of our shameless links, we want you to bombard us. Do you have a worker co-op business or local union you'd like us to advertise at the end of our episode for free? So, if you'd like ears on your worker co-op, go down to weareserfs.com. And while you're there, join the Discord because it's filled with righteous guys, gals, and MPals. Finally, come check us out on Twitch Live 5 days a week by going to twitch.tv/thesurftv. Yeah. To our lords, Ricky Pilgrim, I'm Raft, Tomospone, Nine Tails Cosmic Fox, Hans Josephine, and Corpse Harvester, we bow meekly for your pleasure. To our Knights of the Round Table, Josh Mickelson, Dylan Byte, Zach Christensen, Todd Buckingham, Todd Lajeunesse, Clement Chetskoff, Cooper Pilot, aka the man with large balls, Political Puppy, Nick Davis, Ali May, and Alan R., we salute you. And to our many merchants and farmers, you have our undying loyalty.